I find it so continually awe-inspiring that you could sit inside a sauna, sit there and do nothing. And if you have all these details right with the light therapy and the EMF mitigation, you are stacking so many therapies on top of each other and doing so much by doing nothing.
Let's ditch the quick fix and dive into today's conversation. Welcome, everybody. I'm joined today by Brian Richards. Brian Richards is a nationally known expert in sauna therapy, light therapy, and EMF science. In 2013, he founded Sauna Space, a company that combines cutting-edge infrared technology with the age-old practice of sauna. In 2008, Brian faced an important health decision: start taking pharmaceuticals for acne, insomnia, and adrenal fatigue, or try full-spectrum sauna therapy coupled with ancestral practices like clean diet, proper sleep, and yoga. By opting for the natural approach, Brian rapidly transformed his health. This life-changing experience inspired him to create Sauna Space. In his journey to develop the perfect product, Brian has immersed himself in the science and research behind light, heat, electromagnetism, and the human body. 13 years later, he brings a refreshing approach to natural living, biohacking, and natural health transformation. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me, Damon.
Yeah, very excited to have you here. And I'm hopeful for our listeners to be able to just take in all that you have to offer on light therapy, specifically near infrared sauna. So I thought it'd be good just to start out with, if you could just kind of share the history of sauna use, kind of some of even the old traditional ancient sauna use, and maybe bring the history up to where you're at today with sauna.
Yeah, sauna therapy in its many forms, whether it's a sweat lodge or a Korean hot pool or hot baths, also in the Eastern traditions too. In Ireland, they had saunas. So it seems like every human culture has some kind of sauna tradition or some kind of tradition wherein you sit and sweat passively in a hot space and somehow it's heated up. That aligns actually quite nicely with the modern observation we have nowadays across really thousands of published literature studies now in the use of sauna for ameliorating pretty much everything, pretty much every disease you can think of. I always remind people of the 2015 Lau Cannon study that showed that the more you did sauna per week, the longer you live. So sauna, for some reason, reduces all-cause mortality, which means it reduces your risk of dying of all things. And so if you get into the literature, also you see that reflected in study after study, disease after disease, whether it's Alzheimer's and Parkinson, neurodegenerative sort of mental brain disorders, to cardiovascular disease. That was what was the focus of the longevity study, to improve cognitive functioning and pain reduction and improved autoimmune, people who are dealing with autoimmune and so many other things. Sauna is passively sweating and cleansing the body of poisons primarily, but it's also has this protein refolding and repairing component to sauna therapy that makes it more than just cleansing and detox. It really is a cellular reoptimization, a rejuvenation that's going on, where the cell is working better and proteins are working better and overall body functions are working better, organ level functioning and hormonal functioning and things like that. It's one of the most widely studied natural health therapies out there. It works really well, it seems like, and all you have to do is kind of use it. And I really like how that harmonizes with this ancestral wisdom, the wisdom of our ancestors of, hey, we can cleanse ourselves, we can repair ourselves through this practice of heating ourselves up passively. So nowadays we have electric saunas. We don't have just the wood-fired saunas of old. And most people think of a modern electric sauna. They think of either a hot rock sauna where you heat up rocks and you pour water on it, which is very similar to a Finnish sauna. We're using really hot air, 180 degree air to heat the body up, wet air. And then you have also your standard far infrared sauna, which most people consider to be an infrared sauna. It's called a far infrared sauna. So it uses technology that emits low energy, long wavelength infrared. It's called far infrared. And there's two different types of that technology: carbon emitters and black carbon panels, like ceramic emitters and black carbon panels. And so all these are different ways to kind of heat the body. But what's interesting about what I stumbled into, and that was part of my healing journey and my story and what Sauna Space, my company, manufactures, is actually a sauna wherein the technology to heat the body is incandescent light. So it uses big high wattage incandescent bulbs. And it turns out actually historically, this was the first electric sauna. So right after light bulbs were invented in 1887, in 1891, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg of Battle Creek, Michigan, invented what he called the electric incandescent light bath. And he just looked at the new technology of the incandescent light bulb and said, hey, there's something special about this light. Let's use it to make a sauna with. And he did so. And so he ran like 50,000 patients with chronic illness through his electric incandescent light bath over a period of years in the first decade of the 20th century, over 200,000 sauna sessions, and documented all of it and developed protocols for it. And you can read about it in a book that he wrote called Light Therapeutics. And that was published in 1910. So basically what we do here at Sauna Space, and what's so interesting about our electric sauna, is that it uses light to heat the body instead of using hot air. And so that introduces beyond just a more effective sauna, because near infrared light, and we'll talk about that maybe in a minute, but it basically heats the body radiantly. It heats it a lot more efficiently. So you can raise core temperature a lot faster. So in a near infrared sauna session, in a Sauna Space session, you're sweating profusely in 15 minutes. You're done in 25 minutes. So it's a very short, efficient, quick session. So it's essentially a more efficient sauna session, but it also introduces this really, really interesting concept called light therapy. Particularly, it's called photobiomodulation. Right. So light controlling biology. And that's a therapy that's layered on top of the sauna therapy that we do with near infrared sauna, with incandescent light sauna, particularly. And it just makes a whole different experience. It's quite a bit different in so many ways. So yeah, most people know of Finnish saunas and of wet saunas and of steam baths and sweat lodges and stuff. Or they know nowadays about more ubiquitously offered infrared sauna product is the far infrared sauna. So we're doing something totally different. We're using incandescent light. And so I basically stumbled upon this at the beginning of when I had health problems. I had adrenal fatigue and mind racing, and I had weird acne on my torso and some other problems that were related, lethargy, insomnia, irascibility. And I discovered I didn't want to take Accutane as I was recommended to take by a dermatologist. So I got on this journey of trying to figure out the solution to my own problem online. And I kept coming across sauna and detoxification and this concept that, hey, it's the poisons in our environment in various forms, chemical, electromagnetic, and otherwise, that are killing us. They're one of the biggest contributing factors to our disease. If you couple that with some of our lifestyle choices and how we live nowadays and our diet, that's the lion's share of why we're sick nowadays, I think. And so this concept intrigued me. Hey, I can sit at home and I can cleanse myself, and it's going to, maybe help me out with some of my health problems. So I built my own sauna, an incandescent bulb sauna using these big fat incandescent bulbs. It didn't look like this. It was really fugly. You know what they say? It was a little, it was like with painter's cloths and plumbing pipe and 4 incandescent red heat lamps. So I used prototype. It. Yeah, it was worse than a prototype. But it worked. It was amazing. I used it for 2 sessions and it really cured my insomnia. In other words, I could fall asleep, and I used it right before bed. And that got me really intrigued. And so then I continued to use it for 6 months with discipline, and pretty much all of my problems went away. And that was sort of the inspiration, slowly but surely, for my formation of Sauna Space and the pursuit of an incandescent light and a modern incandescent electric light bath. Something that was safe from a product perspective. Later, I started getting into EMF mitigation and dealing with removing electromagnetic stress from the experience, from the therapy, and so many other things. And so I was amazed. I was stunned after I built my sauna. It worked, and I used it. I was stunned because there was no commercial version of this type of sauna on the market, of this technology. And so that was 8 years ago, and I've been obsessing over that ever since. And I started out, just a couple $100 in my pocket, and you can see behind me, this is my shop now, and we make a very unique product. And it turns out through the last 10 years or so, I've gotten on a journey of learning the science, diving into this, interviewing people, just doing a lot of research myself to understand what is going on here that's so special, and why is it so helpful for everybody? It seems like pretty much anybody who tries our stuff out and tries it with discipline is getting benefit from it, and really in powerful ways. And it's across a gamut of different situations, personal life situations, not just demographics, but health situations. I can't make medical claims. I'm not a healthcare provider, so I can't make any medical claims to treat anything. But if you look at our customer base, 15,000 customers or more, you see folks from really every walk of life in the health world, whether it's the autoimmune world or the pain world, the chronic pain world, the inflammation world, or the people dealing with infectious disease and other things, to just everything you can think of. Really fascinating, as it were. So
that's a good history. I appreciate that. And I was going to just kind of hit a couple points there. Well, one is obviously heat will kind of help the detox, as we sweat out. And that's one of the things people have used saunas for. But I think you're kind of also hitting into how the body is stimulated or stressed to rebuild and repair itself better through this kind of therapy, sauna therapy specifically. And so that's really kind of the essential necessity that we all have, is how do we stimulate our body's ability to rebuild and repair itself better? It's designed to do that, and we can do bad things to it and it'll interfere with it, or we can do good things that help it, rebuild and repair better. So, and you've kind of hit on the near, mid, and far infrared categories. What is really the specific difference between those three types of infrared? Not necessarily just the hot rocks or the Finnish type of historic sauna use, but those three infrared. What is kind of the differences there? And specific, kind of, I know that there's studies that are out there, but what are some of the specific cellular impacts that you're aware of through? Well,
just to touch on your comment prior to your question, this is called hormetic stress therapy, or MESIS. This concept that if you, in a limited fashion, stress the body out in the right way, in the way it's biologically programmed to do, or even also near infrared light exposure traditionally from sunlight, you activate intelligent healing and repair and rejuvenation systems in the body. Really fascinating, amazing. So it's the it's the constant 24-hour stresses that are bad. This idea, our body is designed to be stressed. If we don't stress, we get atrophied. I think people understand that with exercise, but maybe not quite so much in regards to detox and cellular repair and anti-aging and correcting our epigenetics and our DNA, which light therapy has a lot of effects on. But yeah, let's clear up a little bit of this confusion. So near, mid, and far infrared. First of all, if you look at sunlight, 41% of it's near infrared, and a little and less than that of mid infrared, and then only a few percent of it is actually far infrared. So the wavelengths that reach the Earth, the wattage that reaches the Earth from the sun, the largest plurality of it is actually near infrared. And if you're just if you're considering visible light and all the wavelengths, if you look at just infrared, the lion's share of the infrared emission is actually near infrared. So these are the high energy infrared wavelengths that are right next to visible light. Infrared light is technically not visible light. We can't see it.
Right.
But it's tricky because we don't see it, and yet it's the largest chunk of what the sunlight gives us each day. That's also the same light band that stimulates mitochondrial response. So we have mitochondria in every cell of our body, except red blood cells, and they have a light receptor protein that only absorbs visible red light and about half of the near infrared portion of the sunlight. So technically that's 600 to 1,000 nanometers or so wavelengths. When the near infrared light strikes the mitochondria, you get all these healing effects in the cells. And there are anti-inflammatory responses, there are anti-aging responses, regenerative cell responses occur, and really so many other things. It gives your cell energy without the input of sugar. It activates, really thousands of different little cascades that are all about healing and repair and restoration and improvement of function. And so, again, since you have mitochondria in every cell of your body, you can benefit from this if you just have the right wavelength of light. But to do so, it has to be red or near infrared. So that's probably the hugest difference between near infrared wavelengths and the mid and the far infrared wavelengths, which are correspondingly longer wavelength lower energy. Mid-infrared wavelengths are next to near infrared. So it's red light, 600 to 700 nanometers, near infrared, 700 to 1500 nanometers, more or less. Mid-infrared from 1500 to 3000 nanometers. And then after that, far infrared at 3000 nanometers and greater. So the mid-infrareds heat you up and the far infrareds heat you up. And the latter part of near infrared, 1000 to 1500 nanometers heats you up. But only the high energy portion of near infrared, 700 to 1000 nanometers, stimulates this really special mitochondrial system in the body. So the biggest difference between incandescent based near infrared saunas and the far infrared saunas that are mostly out there in the market are really that far infrared saunas don't deliver any photobiomodulation. They don't trigger any mitochondrial healing system in the body. So they're only really offering half of what we're offering, as it were.
So that's fair to say that those will give you some of the detox benefit, but they won't give you, like you said, some of that good cellular mitochondrial stimulation, which really helps rebuild and repair better. I mean, detox is going to help that rebuild and repair process.
It is, and there's not, this is not to naysay these other types of saunas. Right. Ultimately, in any type of sauna, the benefit comes from raising core temperature a few degrees such that you sweat profusely. And when you do that, you've activated this heat shock protein response in the cells, and you're getting that sauna benefit, whether you're in a hot tub or a Finnish sauna or a far infrared sauna or under the sun even, or in a Sauna Space style, like an incandescent sauna. All of these, once you achieve that core temperature increase, you're achieving those benefits. It just, depending on how you heat the body, it may take longer. But separately with SaunaSpace, with Near Infrared Sauna, you're layering on top. At the same time that you're doing the sauna sweat therapy, this detox, you're doing mitochondrial stimulation. So it's something that people do on their own. It's more commonly referred to as red light therapy or light therapy. And most of the products in the market are LED based in terms of light therapy. But instead of having to do the light therapy and the heat therapy separately, you could do them together. And I think there's definitely a synergy between the two, even though they're not activating the same systems. They have very much overlapping benefits and effects in the body. So with all saunas, you can detox, but only with near infrared saunas are you really getting full body photobiomodulation. All photobiomodulation is light therapy, but not all light therapy is photobiomodulation. Some light therapy involves the use of blue light or green light even to stimulate. We have blue light receptors in our body.
Right.
But when I say photobiomodulation, PBM for short, I'm specifically referring to the use of red and near infrared light to heal and regenerate and repair damaged or degenerate tissue, basically through the mitochondrial healing system. And that's what's really unique. That's what we get. 40% of sunlight has that. So when you're in the sun naked and you're living, or not naked, but with skin exposed, at least some flesh exposed, you're living as our ancestors lived, wherein every day they got lots of exposure to near infrared light, according to the daily cycle and the daily relationship with the sun, that we no longer get anymore. So we have this built-in healing system in the body, but it has to be activated by near infrared light. It doesn't happen with far infrared light. And then also, if you think, not just ancestrally, but like environmentally, because of water absorption and the fact that most of the greenhouse gases, or the most of the things, our atmosphere is like 70% water or something. All the far infrared wavelengths are absorbed, so they don't even reach the earth. So we don't have a historical sort of an evolutionary relationship with far infrared, whereas we do with near and with red, but particularly near infrared. So that's the big difference there between near, mid, and far. But when it comes to sauna, there's different implications. So I touched on this concept of water absorption. This is a really important thing. The human body is also full of water.
Yep.
We're 70% water by weight, but we're 99% water volumetrically. So water is also a chromophore. And it's in physics, you can look up the water absorption spectrum. Water begins to absorb light right in the middle of near infrared at 980 nanometers. That's the first overtone of water. So
our body is very receptive to that exposure, to be receiving that.
We are. Because of our mitochondrial response, and also the fact that it penetrates in deeply into the body. You have what's called the optical window of the body. the melanin in our skin and the hemoglobin in our blood absorb much of the blue and the ultraviolet and protect us. Those are protective mechanisms. And then on the other side of the optical window, water begins to absorb light strongly in the middle of near infrared, particularly though once you get to mid and far infrared. And what that means is mid infrared and far infrared wavelengths are almost 100% absorbed by water, so they don't penetrate it deeply. But near infrared is in this kind of unique sweet spot where it does mitochondrial stimulation with the mitochondria, but it also has been shown to penetrate the most deeply into the body of all wavelengths, actually 830 nanometers. So the only wavelengths of sunlight, of light, that have been shown to penetrate bone tissue are actually near infrared. And if you talk about photobiomodulating the skull, red light therapy and photobiomodulation is being used quite broadly now for TBI, for recovery from neuropathies and stroke and other things. So we're repairing brain cells. We're regenerating and making brain cells work better. But our brains are protected by our skull, the thickest bone in our body.
Right.
So if you use red light, you don't penetrate into your brain at all. You have to use near infrared light to go in deeply into the body. So back to the concept of sauna, if you use primarily near infrared, so a near infrared centric spectrum to heat the body, it heats it up way faster because the photons are actually penetrating many inches into the body and heating you from within. And so with the Sauna Space sauna that's near infrared based, it's incandescent based, we have an ambient air temperature that's not that high. It's only 120 degrees or more, but the body nonetheless is heated up quickly and safely and effectively and enjoyably, and you get a sweat response surprisingly quickly. And that's because of the thermodynamic method by which we heat the body. So if you've done a far infrared sauna session, most people out there will appreciate that it takes 40 or 45 minutes. It's just a longer way. It takes longer to heat the body up. With near infrared, we're heating up the body much quicker, but and safely at the same time, and at a more gentle, lower ambient air temperature. And we're also doing all of the mitochondrial stimulation all together, all at once, because we've been careful to make the spectrum of our bulb near infrared centric instead of mid or far infrared centric.
Very good. You know, there's a lot there to kind of unravel, but just kind of a quick TBI is traumatic brain injury for the listeners that are wondering what that was about. So, you know, it's pretty fascinating. How the body heals itself is amazing. And then how light, you know, stimulates that healing is totally amazing. And you touched on a little bit, there's a difference between what people will go to a spa and get red light therapy. It's a different type of light. It's an LED light. Could you just kind of before we get into just a couple more benefits here, and then but could you quickly kind of hit on the difference between your incandescent bulb being able to do both the red light therapy and the near infrared? And I know you've had a couple of interviews with Dr. Mercola, and there's good interviews people could check out with you and Dr. Mercola and articles that he's written. But there's another article he had written here just in March with Ari Witten, and he really talks a lot about the near infrared and red light therapy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, kind of coming back to the question, what is the difference between what you get at the spa and what you get with an incandescent bulb, red light specifically, more than?
Yeah, it comes down to these two different technologies. What's at the spa, and most red light and near infrared light therapy products are LED based. So an LED is a computer chip that you run electricity through, and it fluoresces light. And the incandescent bulb has a filament inside that is heated up very hot to, in my bulb, it's tuned to about 2400 Kelvin. So, and so it's called an incandescent bulb because it incandesces. In nature, incandescence is when you heat a material hot. Up in nature, it just begins to emit light naturally. And you can predict the curve using a physics law called Planck's law. And you can integrate that and say, okay, well, the sun is an incandescent light source. It's burning at 5500 Kelvin. It's really hot. And so according to Planck's law, it should emit this very broad, full spectrum light. And then if you go and you measure the sun's emission at each wavelength, you find that same power curve. So it's a fundamental aspect of nature. It's the light of nature. It's called incandescent light. It's incandescence. When you see a iron rod heat up and it glows red, that's incandescence. And so the difference is Incandescent light is the light that we've evolved to benefit from across really from a mitochondrial perspective across millions or billions of years. But humans certainly have only had incandescent light as a light source pretty much in their life, other than moonlight, throughout all of our history. And the difference, so that's a difference kind of historically, ancestrally, but spectrally, LED light is very narrow. It's a very digital looking light. So it's a red light LED therapy device will emit 660 nanometer. That's in the middle of the red spectrum. And it's a very high wattage of light in a very narrow spectral band of 5 or 10 nanometers.
Okay.
And so it's like a spiky looking light on a spectrum. A incandescent light is broad spectrum light. So the sun's emission is centered on visible light, and it's this big bell curve with a long tail into infrared, with, again, the sun being like 41% near infrared. Our bulb is a very similar spectrum, but it's about half the temperature of the sun in terms of the filament inside. It's about 39% near infrared, but it's still this broad bell curve spectrum with a long tail into infrared very similarly. And the difference really is that you're getting all of the wavelengths to stimulate mitochondrial, the mitochondrial response. It's not just 660. It's not just red light that does it. It's near infrared that does it too. And there's definitely maximal points within each. In fact, 660 and 830 seem to be the most maximally stimulating of the mitochondrial response. So that's why these LED devices were developed to be tuned to that one wavelength or the other. But with an incandescent light, if it's high enough Kelvin like ours is, unlike a home incandescent bulb, a very high Kelvin, high wattage bulb, you could say LED light therapy, synthetic vitamin C powder versus incandescent light therapy is more like the orange. And so there's a lot of benefit to taking, vitamin C powder or vitamin C if you have an extreme illness, for flu recovery or things like that. But I'm going to eat the orange every day to maintain my health. That's really the difference between the two. Same thing with sauna. Sauna is really unique and just being a way to maintain our bodies every day. And so with incandescent photobiomodulation, you can do both together.
Very good. And when it come back to the, some of the uses, you touched again on traumatic brain injury, trying to do things with Alzheimer's, dementia. How about autoimmune type of things? The big continuing conversation includes the COVID virus, but other viruses. Have you seen anecdotally and or had any studies out there that touch on how the light therapy helps our immune system and other things that it can help?
Yeah, actually, a very interesting area of research. Of course, sauna is probably the number one way to boost your immune system. You're literally inducing what your body does when it gets sick. When you get feverish, your body is intentionally heating itself up to promote a heat shock protein response, activate cellular detox, and help the body fight off the pathogens in its system. But I think more interesting than that, or more fascinating, is the effects of photobiomodulation on the immune system. So number one, the three direct effects of near infrared light therapy are increased ATP production, release of nitric oxide out of the cell, and production of the reactive oxygen species. And then those three sort of elements interact together to produce the mitochondrial functions, all the indirect effects. And you get some of the things I mentioned before, but let's drill down into what are the effects on the immune system. Nitric oxide is a pathogenic killer. The immune system uses nitric oxide, not just for the nitric oxide cycle in the body and the benefits of that, but actually to kill things. And so it has an immune activation effect, but really it's better described as immune modulation. So near infrared light therapy is being shown to support both phases of immune response. The first phase is the soldiers come out of the barracks and attack the pathogens, like the cytokines. The cytokines are the little bullets produced by the T cells that attack. But when the attack's over and we've dealt with the pathogen, we want the soldiers to go back into the barracks. That's called the reformation phase of immune response.
Okay.
And so near infrared light therapy helps the body reduce the number of pro-inflammatory cytokines, increase the number of anti-inflammatory cytokines, and essentially help those soldiers get back into the barracks. Because if they stick around you can have autoimmune symptoms. You can have these cytokines, they start to attack our own body. And so we really want to avoid that. And if you jump to the present, to the current public health crisis of COVID-19, one of the things that's mentioned a lot is cytokine storm, wherein you get too much, an exaggerated kind of immune response, and your immune system can't calm down and it begins attacking itself. People lose their sense of smell and taste often. That's a symptom that's widely associated with COVID-19. So it's, if you are depleted in zinc, you actually lose your sense of taste and smell quite a bit. But long term, I think what's happening, what we think is happening, is that the cytokines are attacking the nerve cells in the nose and damaging your actual nerves. And so near infrared light therapy has an immune modulation effect where it helps the immune system be stronger initially and then stronger and resolving at the end. So it's not suppressing or hyper activating the immune system. It's just making it work better and more effective. And so that's really fascinating. But at the same time, the heating effect, the heat shock proteins themselves also have an anti-inflammatory effect. They're not just helping the body with cellular detox. They can actually help the body metabolize inflammatory proteins. And so you have an anti-inflammatory effect. And that's one of the biggest issues with COVID and really with infectious disease, is beyond the oxygen desaturation effects, is inflammation. And so there's actually some interesting studies in using photobiomodulation to treat COVID, where they're shining the near infrared light on the chest for 10 or 20 minutes over a period of days, and improving, in one study, they improved the pneumonia index so much in a hospitalized patient that they were able to not have to be intubated, not need a ventilator, and they're able to leave the hospital. And so they survived. And that's really fascinating. But
it's very fascinating.
It's because again, back to the hormetic stress thing, the light therapy is slowly conditioning the body, just like in exercise. You're conditioning the cells and the immune system and all these systems in the body to work better and to just re-optimize from a DNA and how a rebuilding perspective, but also how the cell is made and how they're working together and all these other things. So here's an interesting connection to the brain. There's a study on Alzheimer's where what we're seeing is if you photobiomodulate the skull, it produces stem cells, these things called mesenchymal stem cells. And the stem cells are then assisted by the near infrared light in penetrating the brain tissue. And then when they get into the brain tissue, they break up the amyloid plaque deposits that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. And so some of it is like,
you have some neuroregenerative potential there.
You have some major neurodegenerative potential. And actually, there's a great summarizing study by Dr. Michael Hamblin, one of the most famous light therapy experts. He's a physician, or he's a doctor at Harvard, I think. But he did a reviewing article on near infrared light for the brain. And he talked about its really impressive uses in helping with neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and things like that, but also for brain damage, which is stroke and traumatic brain injury and TBI.
Right.
And then also for psychiatric mood issues like anxiety, depression, bipolar. And that's one of probably the biggest side effects of the COVID crisis has been
huge
mental, psychological pain and disorder, just because our lives have been so messed up. So near infrared light has this really great potential of slowly but surely restoring function to cells, whether it's nerve cells in the brain, whether it's bone cells that are producing white blood cells and red blood cells, to inflammation in the gut. A lot of people are using it now for the gut. So we all are dealing with leaky gut. Dr. Mercola mentions that 20 or 30% of the proteins in our bodies are misshapen or malformed or malfolded.
Exactly.
So we need to work on this stuff slowly but surely, like across the entire body. That's what's really great about sauna and light therapy and doing it on the whole body, is we're just in a very safe, low risk fashion, optimizing the body's own repair and rejuvenation systems. And so if you continue to look into the literature, where's near infrared light being used? It's being used everywhere, from traumatic injuries to brain issues to gut and inflammation issues to autoimmune now to just basic pain reduction through the inflammation reduction. And that's one more thing. If I jump back to the infectious disease and the COVID crisis, one of the effects is that, as I understand it, of SARS-CoV-2 is that it displaces the iron in the hemoglobin in your blood. And so your blood can't carry oxygen as well. So we're breathing in air, but we can't deliver that oxygen to the tissues. And then you also get inflammation in the chest. My father actually developed, he got COVID and he developed viral pneumonia as a result of it. He ended up being okay and surviving, but it was pretty intense there for a little bit. And you see that across a lot of people who are dealing with COVID is inflammation in the chest and inability to deliver oxygen to the blood. And so that case write-up I mentioned before also reported that as a result of the photobiomodulation, tissue oxygen saturation increased dramatically. And so you're having this, you're just getting the body to do what it wants to do, and you're giving it the fuel it wants to do. It's not the only thing that's out there. You need to pay attention to your lifestyle and diet, and there's other things to do. But all of what I'm talking about here is we're just tricking the body into thinking it's in its natural environment and it's in this ideal space, and it does what it's programmed to do.
Very, very good. And I'm going to try to get into your product line. I'd love to have people know what you've got available, but just kind of a little bit of a summary there too. Especially this time of year, wherever you live on the planet, you're not getting as many daylight sun hours to begin with. And if you're in the Northwest where I am, like right now, days and days and days without sunlight, and interfered by, the cloud cover as well. So that's where your immune system has a challenge too, because it's not getting enough exposure. And so many people have, for the last 18 months are afraid to go outside. And that's where we get into emotional well-being. And all those things. So it's just a perfect negative storm. Yeah, kind of getting towards wrapping up, but I would love to have you kind of get into your product line and how it's been developed. And we haven't even had the chance to really touch on the EMF, but within your product line, you've got some really cool things with EMF mitigation as well. So maybe share a little bit of that.
Yeah. So our main product is our Illuminati sauna. It's a one-person incandescent light therapy sauna. So it focuses on using near infrared light to heat the body. You can look it up on our website, sauna.space. It looks like a traveling fortune teller's tent or something like that. It's really cool looking. It's lightweight. It's designed to be portable and easy to set up. Ultimately, what I wanted to do was offer something that's more accessible, more effective, more better in all ways, as my son likes to say. Initially, it was just the sauna, but then slowly the product line kind of broadened, and we included this thing here called the photon therapy light. It's what's called traditionally single lamp therapy. It used to be taught in chiropractic schools. It's been used on humans for 120 years. I mentioned Dr. Kellogg. So this type of technology has 120 or 130 years of safe use. And this just is an adjunct to the sauna therapy. You use this to beat screen fatigue. You use it for local symptom relief. You can use it as a perfect light after dark because it's not flickering light. It's not blue light. And when I say screen fatigue, I also mean Zoom fatigue, what we're doing right now.
Right.
All this is, if you use this, you can use it in a targeted fashion, but you can have it just next to you to make the lighting environment inside your home more naturalistic and less synthetic. This junk light that we have around us, it's all blue light based and it's flickering, is really unnatural. It's a nervous stressor on our body. Blue light causes free radical formation, and ultraviolet light is actually ionizing. So people are using that to make their home environment more enjoyable. It's like kind of like an electric fireplace. But all of this, whether it's my photon or our saunas, our Illuminati sauna, or our tungsten sauna heater panel, it's all electromagnetically shielded. So this is something I discovered through the course of developing the product line and developing the company, is this idea that, man-made electromagnetism in some forms is damaging to our body. Not all of them. There's great benefit to some of these PEMF devices and other things, right. But cell phone signal, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, wired electricity, particularly the 60 hertz that we have in the US, actually damages our biology slowly. It's what Dr. Klinghardt calls the electrosmog if it's in the air. So we got a billion times more electromagnetism that's man-made than we had 100 years ago. And if you look up Dr. Martin Paul's work, you see there's absolutely a biological mechanism by which cell phone signal has a biological effect on our cells, and not a good one. It causes oxidative stress. It basically depletes our antioxidant levels and causes the same DNA damage through the peroxynitrite cycle that X-rays cause on our DNA. It's just slower, but it's a little bit more pernicious because it's 24 hours a day. You can't escape from it. So at SaunaSpace, we said, well, how can we deal with this? So we use electromagnetic shielding technology, from a shielded power cord to shielded wiring internally to the guard itself that protects you from touching the lamp, because the lamp's very hot, is a grounded Faraday cage. And so we first mitigated all the electric field and magnetic field from all of our products. And be careful out there when you hear of someone saying, hey, our product's low EMF. You need to ask them about electric field and magnetic field. Most of the sauna companies out there who describe themselves as low EMF are only referring to milligauss, which is a magnetic field measurement, but they're not shielded from electric field at all. But even if you do that, and what I'd like to say is that SaunaSpace doesn't bring any EMFs to the party anymore, we still need to address the environment itself.
Right.
And so that's where we eventually developed our grounding mat for our SaunaSpace for all of our saunas. It has a grounding mat that protects you from wired electric fields. It basically traps those electric fields and drains them away. The bamboo mat in all of our saunas is actually a grounding mat. It has conductive material in it that's grounded to the light panel. But our biggest leap forward has been our Faraday sauna. And so that features an organic cotton, 35% silver cable fabric. So, and that surrounds the sauna and is in the curtain as well. And that's also grounded to the light panel. And what that does is it creates a grounded Faraday cage. And that's why we call it that. So Faraday cage comes back to Michael Faraday, but it's basically, you create a metal box and you ground it, and it prevents electric fields from coming inside. And so we've leveraged that, being informed by that technology or that physics concept. We developed a fabric where the metal is these micro silver cables, and we're the only company in the world to have organic certified shielding material. And so we incorporated into the sauna. So when you sit in the Faraday sauna, which you can either buy the regular sauna, or you can upgrade with the EMF shield to a Faraday sauna later, or you can buy it up front. We call it the Faraday sauna. You go in there, and for many people, for the first time in their life, they're in an environment where they're not exposed to cell phone, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, radio waves, all of this man-made electromagnetism. And so it's a break from the EMF, but more than that, it's this perfect therapeutic environment. It's very ancestral inside, and your body loves that.
A bit of
if you can imagine, I'm sorry?
A bit of a sanctuary.
It really is. If you can imagine, people wouldn't meditate, in a polluted space. You wouldn't do that. You would want an ideal space in which to do that. It's the same thing with the electrosmog. You can't see it. You can't smell it.
Exactly.
But you can feel it if you're careful and you're attuned to it, and it absolutely is damaging to you. So you wouldn't want that in your therapeutic space. So we worked really hard. It's in its third or fourth generation now. And basically you can do sauna, do light therapy, EMF free. And we're the only ones that are offering that. We think that it's a big deal. It's just as problematic as chemical exposure nowadays, which you can maybe avoid and mitigate through diet changes and how you eat and what you eat. But how do you avoid the electrosmog? You can't avoid it. It's more and more a part of our lives. And that's actually one more final comment I would make, is that it's not hopeless. There is something that you can do. Sauna therapy, by two different biological mechanisms, through vascular shear stress and through increased production of tetrahydrobiopterin, BH4, actually reverses the same peroxynitrite oxidative stress cycle that EMFs cause. So when EMFs hit your body, they cause this peroxynitrite oxidative stress cycle, and sauna therapy reverses that. So when you sit in the sauna, you are totally reversing the effects of man-made electromagnetic stress when you get in there. So we can, it's an EMF detox of sorts. And so we can recover from, we're not stuck from it, but we got to do something because we're really at pretty high exposure levels now of that. And so we've tried really hard, on top of everything else, through design solutions to mitigate this problem of man-made EMF everywhere and not wanting it to be a part of the sauna therapy.
That's great. I really appreciate that, and appreciate you kind of really getting the detail there. The sanctuary, getting into a space like that, it's an enjoyable experience, I'm sure. For anybody that's used sauna at any level, most of the time you get into this calm space, and to have all that unseen noise blocked out, I want to experience that someday. So I'm going to be looking into it myself. So, and again, where does one go to find your product and follow up more with you specifically, and research and things of that nature?
Yeah, on our website, sauna.space, you can just search that online, but sauna.space is our website. We have a wonderful site that explains the product and the spectrum and the light therapy and heat therapy and things like that. But particularly for you, those of you nerdy types, you can go to my research archive in the footer, where I have several hundred articles now that I've organized by topic that are anything related to the heat and light therapy, but topic specific, like for the hair or for autoimmune or for brain issues. And you can dive deep into the research there. You can also check out my blog.sauna.space. I've got some articles on there, but definitely sauna.space is the best thing. Our customer care team is here pretty much every day in the week. Our products come with a 10-year warranty. You can try them out for 100 days risk-free, and they come with a lifetime of customer care support. So people always have different, interestingly unique healing experiences. Ultimately, you have to try it for yourself. It's like you said, you got to try it sometime. When you sit inside a Faraday space that's grounded, it feels very quiet to the senses. It feels very kind of zen and optimized for, sauna therapy and light therapy. And it's really trippy to think about it that way. We're conditioned to think that you have to work hard for benefit, right? You have to input a lot. You got to have a lot of
or that effort, you might not be able to enjoy the experience, whether it's nutrition or exercise or whatever it is.
Right. Or great point. Or that it's something you have to do. It's this obligatory, burdensome thing. I have to do my healthy stuff now. I find it so continually awe-inspiring that you can sit inside a sauna on your lazy butt, sit there and do nothing. And if you have all of these details right with the light therapy and the EMF mitigation, you are stacking so many therapies on top of each other and doing so much by doing nothing. You have sauna therapy, light therapy, and the detox benefits and the protein rebuilding, the anti-aging effects, but also the sensory deprivation and the opportunity to be present, to be meditative, or do some kind of concentration exercise, which we're designed to do. We're designed to be quiet and alone a little bit.
Right.
And be cut off from all the sensory explosion of sensory stimulus that we have nowadays all day. So it's just such a wonderful thing to do. And the way we do it, it only takes 20 minutes 3 times a week. So it's a very minimal investment. I, for one, don't have time to do anything at all with my family and my obligations. But more than that, I refuse to do something that is supposedly good for me, but I can't sense or feel the benefit of it. And so with this type of sauna, what we do, it feels good. It feels very enjoyable. You get out of the sauna energized and ready to tackle the day. It's just a good feeling. It's something I also, love about ozone therapy. It's something where I can sense what's going on. And so I'm a big fan of doing things because they also feel good, not just because the science supports their use for health benefit.
Right. That's awesome. Well, I really do appreciate it. And I encourage everybody to just take advantage of this opportunity to expose themselves to healthy light. And that's where we'll wrap it up today. Thanks for being with us today, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Damon. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Have a great day.